Morning YouTube, and welcome back to another episode here at Wild Man Lifts. I'm your host, Wild Man. On today's episode, I went to a commercial gym and did 5x5 back squats with a buddy. Now let's jump in and see what we did today. So for today's giant set, it was going to be back squats, and I was squatting down to this med ball because as you can see, my hip crease goes below the top of my knee joint pretty significantly. So this would, I would argue, to be just below parallel. And I'm also doing burpee pull-ups with the rings in between. This is to get my back conditioned and my hips conditioned for the heavier weight when it comes up. I love doing some type of burpee variation because it really makes sure that I'm ready to go when it's time to lift big weights. And I'll be doing about 10 seconds on the assault bike as the finisher. The assault bike gets your conditioning going. Anybody can tell you that who's ever done one. Now, this is my buddy Frank, and also a former client of mine. So he was doing the exact same thing that I was doing. We were gonna do back squat, and he's choosing to go without the med ball, which is perfectly fine, but you'll see later as the weights get heavier, he starts to lose track of parallel. And he's doing burpee pull-ups, but he's doing it with the bar on this session, and he's doing the same number, just 3. Again, he does the same exact workout that I do, so he also did the assault bike. So Frank's just going up in weight, and I'm going up in weight, and we're continuing to do our burpees and our assault bike in between the entire time. Now, the plan was to go to 5x5 with designated weights. Frank does a lot of jiu-jitsu, and so every once in a while, he likes to come back and lift to see just where his strength and conditioning is at. And look at this guy to my right over here getting in my video, sheesh. And Frank realized real quick that even though he hasn't back squatted in a while, he thought he would be able to jump back into this and it was gonna be pretty easy. But as he found out, 225 for him wasn't that heavy of a weight when he was training with me and when I was coaching him. But he said it feels like that thing was made of the Empire State Building. He just thought that that was so heavy on his back. And there actually is a scientific method to that theory. So he started his 5x5 and he's doing his burpee pull-ups in between and the assault bike. And this is what he chose to do it on. But he dumbed the weight down to about 3 reps just so that he wasn't really taxing himself. And for the start of my 5x5, I was doing 315 with no equipment on and no knee sleeves and no belt. And originally it was supposed to be 335 with a belt, with knee sleeves, and going slightly below parallel. I haven't trained parallel all year. I've trained like an inch above parallel. So this time I wanted to see how far I can get without the equipment. So I chose just to go with a lighter weight, which would be 3 plates on each side, and do it without equipment. And to me, that was going to be good enough because since I haven't done it all year, definitely going slightly below parallel on a back squat felt very foreign to me and very uncomfortable at the bottom. And during our 5x5, we're going to continue to do our burpee pull-ups and our 10 seconds on the terrible and awful assault bike to get our heart rate up. Now with Frank here, he's going to do about 3 reps in 5 sets and try to hit more reps at the very end at the last round. But he did say, which again, the scientific method is when you haven't back squatted in a while, it feels really heavy on your back. That's just because your body, your central nervous system, and those muscles no longer recognize that. So if you were able to back squat, 315, and that was your 1 rep max, you might come back, a week or 2 or a month later and go to 225 and it'll feel like it's really heavy on your back. Like 225 will feel like 315. And that's just because your body isn't used to lifting that kind of weight. That's why it's important if you want to get better at any compound lift, you got to do it frequently and you got to do it often and you got to do it smart. You can't max out every single time you go to the gym. You won't progress. So 5x5 is a great way for advanced lifters, intermediate lifters, to kind of go back to the basics and really build on their form and on their volume at a lighter weight and make sure that everything is down correctly. And if you're a beginner, it's the perfect format because you're getting those muscles and those tendons used to this kind of workload, and you're not going to be able to have an injury, or at least reduce the likelihood of getting an injury. So what's kind of funny is as I look at Frank weighs about 180 pounds, 178 pounds according to Frank. But I used to weigh 180 pounds. And if you look at me now, it looks like that I just ate Frank. I mean, I'm just so much bigger than he is. But I remember and recall the time when I used to weigh as much as he did. So it just proves that weightlifting over time, you just get bigger and stronger as time comes up. And for me, I've discovered my levers going down to that med ball is just slightly below parallel. So that's why I'm using that. Using the med ball is a perfect tool to make sure that I'm hitting the depth that I want to hit. And since I don't train like this all year round, this was really hard on my quads. And you'll see later how that comes into fruition. Now this was Frank's last set. And you'll see some reps he hits parallel and some reps he doesn't. And all these squats are still good in my opinion, and he's training the proper way. But if you want to be consistent, sometimes it's better to use a tool just to familiarize yourself with the movement pattern. So using something that you have to go down to as a gauge is definitely worth it when you're training. And I'm just kind of there just in case, he has to bail, that I'd be able to help him. But he did fantastic, 5 reps at the end, so good for him. This was my last set, and disaster kind of struck here. Because as I went down right here, there was in my quad. And I immediately racked it back. I thought I tore something in my quad. Turned out to be just a cramp. So I really got off lucky right there. And here I kind of tested it right now, my quad, to see if it was just a cramp. And I could feel that it was just a cramp. It just felt like somebody punched me in my quad. But I'm glad, with my lifting experience, I knew not to try to hit, my last 3 reps, for a total of 25 reps, because I possibly could have torn something. So I decided to forego any other leg movements and just decided to do my assistance giant set, which is going to be 3 rounds of 5 ring pull-ups. And I'm about 230 pounds, so that's awful heavy there. 30 seconds on the assault bike, and then 50 flutter kicks. And I thought that was good enough to call it a day. Wow, that was intense. I wasn't sure if I had an injury or not at the bottom of that squat. Turned out to only be a cramp, so I was able to stand up with it, re-rack it, and continue to work out without any complications. I won't be putting out any new content next week because of Thanksgiving weekend, so I want to wish everybody out there a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your families and with your loved ones. Until next time, thank you.